Hey guys, so we're going to start here with the unit on solids. And the nice part about this section is all of the work that we'll be doing today is vocabulary related. There's not a lot of number crunching, if you will, in this assignment. So when we're talking about solids, you need to realize that solids are objects that do not lie flat in a plane. Anything that is three-dimensional is considered a solid. Any object which is two-dimensional or lies flat in a plane is not a solid. When we're talking about our solids, there's a number of different words that we use to describe them. So for example, you can see that in a cube we have faces, which are the flat planes. We also have vertices, which are our corners. And then we also have edges. So our edges are along the edges. At the same time, you guys can see we also have faces, vertices, and then again edges. When we're specifically looking at shapes now, we can have both lateral edges, which are the edges along the sides of the shape, and we can also have base edges. Along with our lateral edges and our base edges, we also have lateral faces and bases. The base is the shape of the bottom, if you will, or the base of a shape, a solid. At the same time, if I were looking at this solid, you can see that my base would be right here. And then I would have base edges, lateral edges, lateral faces, and then the bases. After using the vocabulary to explain our polyhedron, you can see that we also want to go through and look now at the difference between prisms and pyramids. A prism is any shape that has two parallel bases that are the same congruent polygons. These lateral faces then are parallelograms. We name prisms based on the shape of their base. You can have triangular prisms, square prisms, rectangular prisms, pentagonal, hexagonal, or even octagonal prisms. Prisms are different from pyramids. Pyramids similarly have a base which is a polygon, but they have only one base. The rest of the lateral faces come together into one vertex. At the same time, the lateral faces of pyramids are triangles. As you can see in the slide, pyramids could be triangular pyramids, square pyramids, rectangular pyramids, pentagonal pyramids, hexagonal pyramids, octagonal pyramids. All of them share the same naming scheme, which is the name of the base as a pyramid. They come together in a single point at the top. Different from pyramids and prisms are all members of what we call the polyhedron. Polyhedron are any solid whose faces are polygons. All prisms and pyramids are polyhedrons. Cylinders and cones are the next two that students like to talk about. With a cylinder, we have a shape which has a circular base and a second circular base, and those are parallel congruent circles. We measure and discuss cylinders based on the radius of that circle and the height of the cylinder. Similar to a cylinder is a cone, which also has a circular base, but much like the prisms and pyramids, cones and cylinders, cones have one base with a vertex at the top. And again, we discuss cones based on the radius of that base. When we're discussing different prisms, pyramids, cones, and cylinders, it's also important to talk about skew lines. Skew lines are two lines that do not intersect and do not exist in the same plane. We call that non-coplanar. If we're looking at this rectangular prism here, we'll go ahead and look at this edge line from here, front to the back. That is a skew line with this line here at the bottom. And the reason being is because they do not intersect and they exist in two separate planes. However, if I look at this lateral edge and this edge, you can see that they both intersect right here at this vertex, which means they're not skew lines. At the same time, if I look at this edge with this edge here, you can see that those are not skew lines because they both exist in the same plane. Well, that was a ton of vocabulary altogether. We're going to take just one quick minute and name a couple polyhedron to make sure we're all on the same page. Then you guys will be on to start on your work. So our first prism here that we want to look at is we want to classify it based on the shape of the base. We know that it's a prism because it has two bases which are the same polygon. So when we look, we count up the number of sides on the base. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Given 7 sides, we know that it is a heptagon on the base, and we can classify this shape as a heptagonal prism. If we go on to our next prism over here, we notice that the base is a square, and that's identified by the 4 congruent sides. So this one simply becomes a square prism. Moving down to the next one, again, we see 2 bases that are the same congruent polygon. We count up the sides. I see 6 congruent sides on this shape, or on this prism, so it is a hexagonal prism. Moving on to our next one, we notice now that we have a single vertex at the top and 1 polygon of a base. So we count up the number of sides on the base. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nope, 7. It's a heptagonal pyramid. And we know again that it's a pyramid because we have 1 single vertex at the top.